Hello, BookTube. We're continuing on with my library tour for 2019. It's morphed into what the kids call a thing. And we're doing the history wall. There's a wall of history, so if you're not interested in history, you're not going to be interested in this library at all. And there are low, waist-high bookcases here side by side with books just stacked and stacked on top of them. I did some transverse books yesterday to sort of ease the weight, and now we are on to an actual bookshelf. And I'm going to try and get this whole top shelf done in this video, and then we'll move on there are 3 shelves on this bookcase. I wish that these were taller. I wish these were 8-foot tall bookcases that I could just fill with books. It's the perfect wall for them. I just haven't done it. That's all. I haven't found the right ones. I need to find either 2 8-foot tall bookcases that I can put side by side on this wall, or I need to find 2 more 4-foot tall bookcases that I can stack on top of the ones that I have here. Sooner or later, I will do that. But in the meantime, let's just go through these. So let's see here. We have, I believe this is a UK hardcover of Robert Harvey's book, The War of Wars. This is about England versus France, with Wellington and Napoleon and whatnot. It's a great big thing. Very entertaining to read. Probably, I think it might be my only soup to nuts narrative history of that enormous war. I was very happy to find it. Then we have, okay, this is ancient history, but this is not Roman history. We did all the Roman history. This is Lords of the Sea by John Hale, which is the epic story of the Athenian navy and the birth of democracy. It mostly deals with Athens, although there are other Greek city-states that come into it, and it's all about the awe-inspiring power of a state-of-the-art, well-run navy at the time in Bronze Days Athens. It's you wouldn't think that there'd be much to that subject, but boy, oh boy, Hale writes it just fantastically. So there does end up being. Let's see here. Oh, okay, all right. I guess this is kind of history. This is by Simon Winchester. This is their noble lordships. This is about the British aristocracy, the various ranks of the British aristocracy, all through history and also down to the present day. What they are, what they aren't, where their power lies, how their power has changed over time. I believe I got this at the Brattle Bookshop here in Boston, and I grabbed it right away, not only because the subject really interests me, but also because I've known members of that aristocracy and know a couple right now. So it felt more invested. Okay, I think this is from 2016. Is this from 2016? No, 2015. This is Paul Strathern, who we've seen. He has a new book on the Borgias, and we saw earlier a trade paperback of his book on Renaissance Italy. And this is another of his books on Renaissance Italy. This is Death in Florence by Paul Strathern. This is about, as you can see on the cover, this is about Lorenzo the Great, Lorenzo the Magnificent, Lorenzo de' Medici, and Savonarola, the insane homicidal, genocidal monk who suddenly rose to some sort of populist power in Florence, and the clash of wills between them and what happened. It's again a very well-trod story. You get it in every narrative history of the Renaissance. That you can't help but have it. It's a story that feels like it comes out of a novel rather than reality. So you get a lot of people retelling it. Strathern is a really good reteller, so that's why I have this. Okay, we saw this. These are all it looks like a lot of these are going to be fairly recent. This was from 2018. This is Michael Coty Morgan's book for the final act about, as you can see, again, on the cover, as you can see, the U.S. negotiations with the Soviet Union under Leonid Brezhnev that were conducted mostly by Gerald Ford in his historically overlooked time as president. And I have a fascination with the Cold War, and also at the end of the Cold War, because it was a massive daily drama. Those of you who were born in the 21st century will have no conception of what it was like to wonder every day, to have this us versus them thing, and with a massive array of nuclear weapons on the line, to do nuclear attack drills and wonder I mean, I guess in the 21st century you do have to worry about that every day, only your worry is perhaps worse than ours, because your worry can come from anywhere. It doesn't have to be just one enemy. Your worry can come from, it is easy to download. It is easy to go online and download blueprints, plans for a small nuclear weapon. And comparatively easy, one good day of trading on Wall Street, for instance, if you're in America, one good day of trading on Wall Street would give you enough money to buy the equipment for such a thing, and probably to buy a technician who would do it for you. And that's to say nothing of what I have no idea what's available on the so-called dark web. Probably the weapon's already finished that you can just buy on the dark web. I don't know one way or another, but it is something of a minor miracle that nothing like that has happened so far. No so-called suitcase nuke. That it has happened so far. That is a minor miracle that is true. And I assume that we owe that mostly to the United States and also international intelligence agencies that are slimed at every opportunity by the current president of the United States. I'm assuming it's their unsleeping vigilance that is the reason why that hasn't happened in Pittsburgh or Cincinnati or whatever. But this book is going to seem in a way quaint, because it's a world grappling with an order that at the time everybody hated, but that I'm pretty sure a lot of people would be willing to go back to today. It's just kind of strange. I would never have thought that. Okay, all right. This is Peter Ackroyd. He is an old style omnivorous hack, right after my own style, and he took it upon himself to do a multi-volume history of England. And this is Dominion. This is his volume on the Victorian era. And I loved it. I loved I've loved a lot of the volumes in this series. I wish that I had kept them all. I think this is the only one that I kept. But I've loved them all. This is the sort of thing we've talked about on this channel before, where when somebody does a series like this, or when a publisher commissions a series like this, they have two roads that they can go. They can either go to specialists, or they can go to a generalist. And obviously, Peter Ackroyd is not a specialist on all of these different periods of English history. Instead, what you want in this case is someone who can tell a great story, and he can. He can, no matter what he's writing about. And this is great. It's about the peak of British power. What's this next one? Nice and big. Oh, great. Okay, I mentioned this the other day. This is Geoffrey Warrow. This is Sons of Freedom, with the requisite boring black and white faded historical cover. And this is all about the American contingent in World War I, and Warrow's contention that it was the reason why World War I was won by the good guys instead of lost. That the good guys would have lost if America had not intervened. Big thick thing. I read it in the advanced copy, then I read it in the finished copy and loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I have to say, was largely convinced. I was largely convinced by it. I will need to read someone's riposte, someone's response to this, a scholar's response to this that attacks it, in order to have my opinion change. Otherwise, I'm perfectly willing to accept that I and much of other people have been slightly misreading World War I narrative histories for the last 70 years, and that we've been slightly the typical World War I history is that France and Great Britain had Germany on the ropes, and then the Americans came in as a small trickle, and that turned the tide and allowed the good guys to win. And the contention of this book is that isn't true at all. First of all, none of that is true, and that it wasn't a trickle, that it was America taking over the war and decisively winning it, where if America had stayed out, Great Britain and France would have lost. Fascinating. Well, I've said before on this channel many times, I love that kind of thing. I love the fact that nonfiction, history, biography, whatnot, is in fact the exact opposite of how people who never read it conceive it. People who never read it conceive it as static. Oh, okay, well, you're going to write a book on Roman history, so you're just going to write Roman history again. It's not like Roman history is ever changing. Instead, you're just going to tell it again. And that is not true. You will often get scholars who will just go at the subject like no one had ever written it before. I love that. Absolutely love it. Okay. Well, this is a scholar who does that all the time. This is a book I think we've already seen it. This is The Deluge by Adam Tooze. The Great War, America, and the Remaking of the Global Order. This is the big hardcover. I think we saw a paperback of this. Yes? Yes. Okay. We did. We saw a paperback of this. So for some reason, even though I got the paperback, I have not discarded the hardcover. And even though I have the hardcover, I have not discarded the paperback, which could go a long way to explaining why I have so many books. But this is, Tooze is fantastic. As a writer of history, he's just fantastic. He's not easy. You have to pay scrupulous attention on every page. But it's so rewarded when you do that. He's been like this since the first book of his that came to my attention, I think, was probably the same thing that brought him to everybody's attention, which was The Wages of Destruction. His book about the Nazi economy. Not, the Holocaust, not how evil they are, not panzer divisions, not personalities, but how they actually paid for things. And I remember getting an advance copy of that book for the first time and thinking, well, of all the ways that you could write about Nazi Germany, you chose the boring way, and instead it was great. It was just great. And he's never written a book that displeased me ever since. Wrote a huge book on economic crashes in the 21st century. Would have thought it would have gone right over my head. Instead, I loved every page of it. So what is next here? Oh, okay. Okay, I think we saw a paperback of this as well. This is George Morton Jack's Army of Empire, the story of Indian Army recruits during World War I. Again, the requisite faded sepia-toned cover, although a heck of a photo. All just a complete dissection of the Indian contribution to World War I. Some of which, I knew in bits and pieces from reading books on World War I, but this is the whole story. And that's always fun. That's always an adventure. You always fill in huge amounts of stuff you didn't know. Okay, this is John Ward. This is Camelot's End. This is Kennedy versus Carter, the fight that broke the Democratic Party. And this is Ted Kennedy, Senator Ted Kennedy, in a presidential contest with Jimmy Carter. Period in history that hasn't received as much study as I would like. Of course, Carter has been completely overshadowed by Reagan. So, so you miss a lot of these stories. I wish I had 10 more books like this and many more studies on Carter's administration itself. But I'll take what I can get. John Ward is really good. And what is this next? Oh, this was fantastic. This was so good. This was so good. This is by Miles Taylor, and it is Empress, Queen Victoria and India. And it dispenses with all of the usual bric-a-brac about the Victorian era and about Victoria herself. It dispenses with all of those things and does her the simple compliment of treating her as a working monarch, and treating all of the politics of the day as involving her instead of her being this idiotic figurehead or descending to just her quips or her weird personnel choices. Instead, this is a fantastic book about the actual pragmatic workings of the British Empire. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Hardly any books like it that I know of. So I'm glad that I kept it. I don't think I've seen paperbacks of hardly any of these things. Okay. All right, this is a little older. I think I got this at the Brattle. This is from 2010. Boy, though, is it good. 2010, before we knew each other. This is Nick Bunker's book, Making Haste from Babylon, the Mayflower Pilgrims and Their World. All about not just the pilgrims settling in North America, but also why they left and what their lives were like before they left. The long odyssey that they took to get here. Many books on the subject, but I've never read one that was anywhere near as engrossing as this. So I kept it. Oh man, speak of engrossing, this was incredible. I was worried when I read about it, and then when it started to get closer and closer to me, I was worried. I feared the worst because this is a narrative history of the United States, and I've already experienced a nightmare when it comes to a narrative history of the United States in the form of The People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn, an almost worthless volume that is venerated everywhere by dude bro dabblers in American history, just venerated everywhere. I have lost count of how many times I have started talking to a young person, always a young man, and they, it comes up that I love history. And they say, oh yeah, I love history too. I read really deep into American history, for instance. And I don't even need to wonder anymore. I can just see it coming. That the one and only thing they're going to mention is People's History of the United States by Howard Zinn. So I was worried about this book, and it blew me away. It just blew me away. Not only was it not what I was worried about, not only was it good, but it was great. Just fantastic. Deserves to be the new standard book on the subject. This is These Truths by Jill Lepore. Her big history of the United States that is amazing. Quotable on every page. Cannot recommend it highly enough. It really did nudge to one side a lot of my previous favorite one-volume histories of the United States. I would love it if this thing were assigned in schools, assigned in high schools. Show me a recalcitrant history reader who's in high school who won't get caught up in this book. That's how readable it is. I would love it if that happened. I love it. I cannot recommend it highly enough. Don't know if These Truths is in paperback in America yet, but I know that I reviewed it. I think I reviewed quite a few of these things. Once again, I will try to remember to leave my reviews down below if I did. This was really good. This is Alberto Martinez. This is Burned Alive. Giordano Bruno, Galileo, and the Inquisition. Dark side of these eras, of course, anything that involves Bruno, who was burned alive, this was just a majestic piece of work. Boy, I'm glad I kept this. This was from, when? 2016, maybe? When was this? 2018. No, okay. And this was Reaction Books. Did not see this coming. Was very happy to have it. Very happy. So good. Oh my. Okay. Well, this was, of course, the Ultimate Steve book for the year that I got it. I think this was 2016. Maybe 2017. No, 2017 seems more like it. No, 2018. Okay, this was February of 2018. So right after 2017. This is by Michael Massing, and it's Fatal Discord, and it's all about the war of words, the war of pamphlets, the war of positions and philosophies between Martin Luther and Erasmus. It's a great big thing. I was in seventh heaven the whole time I was reading it. I loved it. I was dreading that it might be dumb, but it dispels that worry in the first chapter, and it just goes on being great from there. It made my year-end list. Of course, it was scarcely not going to do that. And again, I don't think I've seen the paperback, but I loved it. I loved it. Luther has no problem getting in new books every season, every year at least. Erasmus does have a problem doing that. So to see him treated at such length and with such intelligence was a delight. And then we have this last one. So this is not a bad time frame for this. What have we got here? Oh, great. Okay. This is from late 2018. This is by David Gilmour, and it is The British in India, A Social History of the Raj. Very boring cover, but still, this was really well done. I mean, I've read many, many social histories of the Raj. I've read many, many histories and novels about the British in India. So this wasn't breaking any new ground with me, but I thought it was really well done. Lots and lots of emphasis put on personalities, which can go wrong. It can go wrong in a book like this, but it didn't in this case. It's fighting the process of going back on the shelf. Make sure that it's one shelf that's in order. I don't want to ruin the books. All right, so there you go. That was the next shelf in this library tour, in which we are talking. I'm holding up history. So this was fairly all over the map. I think that the further down in this bookcase we go, the more ordered things get in terms of historical periods. But we'll just continue on. We've got the rest of the week to do this. I'm not doing library tours on the weekend. But we've got the rest of the week to look at these things. So I will reconvene tomorrow and we will do this again. Thank you, BookTube.